think that as much as it is having an MC trying to introduce people, it's so much better to get people to introduce themselves. So I'm going to hand straight over to Joe and let you talk about the long tail. Thank you very much.
And you did a great job. So, okay. So my talk is called Secrets of a Moderate Success and Indie's Tale of the Long Tail. So the very first slide, and I got to get, there we go, is the obligatory long tail slide, because not everybody may know what the long tail is. There was a book by Chris Anderson who he basically tries to explain what I call the Amazon effect. Instead of trying to figure out what the hits are and just sell the hits like the brick and mortars have to do, what you do is you sell everything. And you make it easy to access that everything. And in the main long tail here, these are the hits, and I guess I'm going to do this. And this is the long tail. So this is a lot of little sales of everything. Now, for a personal product, you have the large bump you get at the beginning, and then over time, your sales taper off. I'm putting this back. I'm sorry. Can everybody hear me? Okay. Okay. Okay, so just quickly, background on me. I worked for a company called iWin, and in 2004, I did a game called Mahjong Quest with a guy named David Fox, who basically opened up my idea of a bigger design. And I did Mahjong Quest 1, 2, and 3. And back then in 2004, people were just figuring out that women over 40 wanted to play video games. And they weren't quite the Twitch games everybody else was playing, but this is when Bejeweled's becoming big. We had a game called Jewel Quest that became huge. Zuma. The casual market was starting to be born. There was a boom. All of a sudden, budgets started going through the roof, and all of a sudden, the rise of the HOG game. And HOG stands for Hidden Object Games. I was there in 2009 while price wars happened, big budgets happened, canceled projects, and Mahjong Quest 1, 2, and 3 really made iWin a lot of money. And it was about 80% mine. My creation, and then co-creation and stuff, but I finally decided, I didn't get any royalties for that, and I finally decided that, my days of doing what I call a hired gun from the Old West were over. I wanted to do my own thing. I was sick of people saying no to me on any idea level, and so that's the past. So in the future, I don't think these are my right slides, but I'm going to just continue. In the future there are 2 I's in Indies and 3 more in original IP, and I decided to leave iWin and start on my own. And that's when Clutter was born. Clutter was my attempt at making what I call the Blair Witch of hidden object games. The hidden object game was the largest demographic that I wanted to hit, but it was all AAA. So I couldn't compete with AAA art, and what I wanted to do was create a low-budget game that would still appeal to those people without really being a hidden object game. So in fact, I even called it the ultimate unhidden object game. And basically, just to take 2 seconds here, the simple mechanic was you match any 2 objects and pull them off the pile. So you can see the 2 cakes there, you can see the 2 mouse-like things, and that's it. And that sounds really, really simple, but after this kind of a level, you split objects in half, you turn them into black and white, you give them 3 objects to pull off, you give them 3 objects, but they can only pull off 2, so one's left, and tons of variations. Okay. And this is actually all my art, all programmer art, and it's quite ugly, which is fine. Okay, so here was my plan. And I had less of a design document than even the last guy who spoke. And I thought I would get the game done in 8 to 10 months. I wanted to release the game and make some money. And I thought the game would make either less than 20K, because I thought it would just die, or it would make over 100K. And for 8 to 10 man months, that would be worth it for me. But I was wrong. It ended up, this is what happened. It took me over a year to finish. The long tail drop from initial sales spooked me big time, and I'll get into that later. And my prediction was completely wrong. So after 15 months, it was settling in, making just under 50K. So right in the middle. And this is what not good enough looks like. And as you can see, this is, the blue is the classic long tail. Now there's some bumps in there because of box product and foreign sales, but basically you can see it trailing off. The cumulative sales is the red, and you can see if you project that line out, it's at about 48K, and it's down to bringing in $500-600 a month, and it's going to dwindle. And if it makes 52, 53 over the next year, I'd be lucky. Okay, but what's good about a moderate success? Seriously, what's good about moderate success? Seriously, I want to know what's good about a moderate. Oh wait, I get it. It's repeatable. So I figured if I could do the sequel in half the time, it would be worth it. Okay, a man year, 50K, not good. 6 man months, 50K, good for me. And to keep it simple, this is the first game's opening screen. I didn't really want to change that. I wanted that sequel out in 6 months. I wanted to hit that target. So I added, there was a, well, I'll just put it there. There is, the guy on the left there is Leon. He was the host of the first game. He actually hosted a seminar called Declutter Your Life. And in the second game, I added basically Anna and this trunk in the middle. No trunk, trunk. Anna on the left, okay? That was it. And then I changed the gameplay. I added dragging and a few other things, but I tried to keep it simple. Okay, so this is the bar chart that really tells the story, but this is an older one. I've pulled this. It's horrible, but we're going to go on. Okay, so at about the 15-month mark, you see where the other one was tailing off at 48K. The blue is actually total sales of Clutter I plus Clutter II at Clutter II going out. So as you can see, you see the red continues. It lifted the red, which is Clutter I. But the cumulative was even better. And 29, Clutter was dead at 48K, but with Clutter II going out, Clutter I actually got 29,000 more in sales. What? Yes, blue is cumulative, and in about the same period, in the 13 months, the second game has now made almost 60K. So cumulative, this slide's actually old, it's made 135K for me now, and that's net to me. So this is the new math of doing a digital sequel, and trust me, I fixed this slide. This is horrible. But 1 plus 1 is greater than 2.5. That's what I learned. And in fact, for me, it looks like 1 plus 1 is actually going to be greater than 3. This other one was trying to explain where the 29K should go. And this was actually older, and this is actually a couple months ago. But basically, 29K either goes to you either count it as Clutter I, which you really shouldn't, because if Clutter II didn't exist, Clutter I wouldn't have got it, or you just count it as Clutter II. So it looks like Clutter II and the bump is going to make me about 100K. So for 6 months, man, I'm thinking that's really good. Okay, so this is the other slide with 1 plus 1 is 2.5. This is a horrible slide that's gone now, but the point of this slide is this. It took me 15 months to make 48K. Clutter II went out in 5 months. It made the 48K. So I was getting happy and going, I'm doing Clutter III. So is Clutter special? And I answer, here's the yes slide. So first of all, it's a love me and hate me kind of game. A lot of really good games get, 5 stars, 5 stars, 5 stars, and then they trail down to just a couple people hating them. I get this. I get a lot of lovers and quite a few really vocal haters. And I actually think that's what you need for a really great game. And I'm not saying Clutter's a great game, but I was happy with that effect. I did target the HOG market. That is the biggest market. It also sells well in the brain teaser section over at Big Fish Games. It also does well in all access, because a typical HOG game, You play it for 4 to 6 hours, and then when you're done it, you're done it. It's like a movie. They treat it like a movie. My games, they play between 10 and 20 hours. High replayability. All the levels, even the mini puzzles, are randomly generated. You play it over and over as much as you want. And I named it Clutter, which actually I think helped on Amazon, because I bring in a little over 100 a month on Amazon. And that's because I didn't name it Joe's Puzzle Game, because nobody's searching for Joe's Puzzle Game. But hey, Clutter, people actually search for that, and occasionally I'm sure the game pops up. The last thing Clutter, I think, does well is I think I really understand the difference between a game and a puzzle and what I call activities. So the game's the collection, but puzzles are thought to be, hard or easy. But you really want to make a puzzle so easy when you introduce it that it's really an activity. It's not really even a puzzle. It's the smallest possible puzzle you get, and they should be having fun even as the puzzle gets harder, even if they're not winning or not solving it. And definitely no. Low production values. Some found it boring and stupid. Has a really annoying non-standard story element that I did. Gets no respect at all from pre-filters. These are the people. The post-filters are the people that actually buy your game or decide to buy your game or not. The pre-filters are people that decide whether they're going to let your game on their site. And they have to evaluate games because they make the case they can't take everybody's games and they want to evaluate it and so forth. And those are the pre-filters. And this game definitely gets no respect from them. But it's really a commodity type game. Think of, Sudoku, the book mentality. Once you get them enjoying this mechanic and all the variations I give it, they want more. They want their next Sudoku book. Okay? And even though they're playing this one to death, they want the next one. And they don't want it to be super, super different. They want it, they want the next thing. And when you make it a commodity, you sort of take the ego of your own creation sort of out of it. And I switched from trying to be super, super creative to really just trying to please that audience. And the last thing here is it's no, because can you learn how to bevel? I tried to get artists. They did certain things for me. But I'm not going back. Okay, there should be a slide of my game back in here. That very first picture I showed you of my game, that's all my art, and that's all from learning how to bevel. Because bevel is like a lever. Archimedes said, "Give me a lever and a place to stand, I'll move the world." Well, that's how I feel about bevel. Okay. It raises my art from 60s or 70s up to the 80s, and I don't have artistic sense, so that's still kind of missing, but at least I can put a shine on a button and make it look 3D or whatever. So, okay. So everybody comes up to me and says, what about Facebook and mobile? Why aren't you chasing that? And my answer is simple. It's all about the eyeballs. I do not know how to get seen in Facebook and mobile. And there's third-party people that'll try to do it, but, my game, it goes on Big Fish Games, 100,000 people are going to see it right off. And if I get a 6% to 10% conversion rate, I'm going to do fine. So that's why I stick where I am right now, even though a part of that market is moving to tablets and mobiles, and I'm going to have to worry about it in a year. The pre-filters, just one quick slide on them. They're the gatekeepers. They're very parochial, and by that I mean judgmental. They're trying to protect their customers. They make shallow and quick judgments. And by the way, when I cleaned up this slide, I got a little less mean. They're very hit mentality, and they think they're 99% correct all the time. And I don't believe that. They miss the fact that I was really trying to be the Blair Witch of HOG games, and they miss that gameplay trumps both art and story, I believe. Now, I'm not saying art and story doesn't enhance, but if the gameplay's there, people don't care. I argue that if they made Tetris today, they would add a story, they would kill the flow of Tetris, and nobody would have liked Tetris if it came out today in today's market trying to be, the gorgeous Tetris or something. They miss that my game is the same yet different. Even the indie, I entered the indie thing last year, the contest before the GDC, and I got an email basically saying that, they might have looked at the first couple levels and that's it, because they missed the variation, the varieties, the depth, and so forth. And it's very random, it's very replayable, and it's fun. And a lot of the feedback I get from the people that like the game use words like addicting. And it's got a little something for everyone, which is a real plus for your market, a real negative for the pre-filters. Pre-filters don't want to look at everything, it takes too long, they don't want to be able to wrap their brain, around it. Okay. Horrible slide, we're done, you already guys get this. This is why I don't worry about the future. Okay. So lots of folks, like at Big Fish, all these other, they're already worrying about the future for me, and they got tons of employees. They're worried about their market slowly shrinking, going to tablets, going to mobile. And eventually I see that they will handle the problem and possibly be able to help direct traffic and aggregate. And hopefully they'll still have the same model today, which is I don't pay for a download. Big Fish or iWin, they eat that cost. Okay, I don't have to pay a marketing person 10 cents for somebody to look at my game to possibly buy it. So all I do is I give it to them and I get a royalty, and that's, for me, that's great. I don't believe the market's going away. I believe the hidden object people, they love them so much. It's like movies. They want the next one, the next one. They call it disposable. So even though they're going to tablets, there's going to be, Big Fish, I think, is going to capture that, actually. Because Big Fish sort of owns the HOG. So, and my game does still appeal to those people, so I'm hoping I'll be fine. Also, again, commodity view. I'm going to get to the point next year where I'm hoping to put out what I call a puzzle magazine every 3 months. That, and again, treat it as a commodity, not as this new and different and big thing each time. And there's better tools. Right now I don't go to Unity, but eventually I'm going to, and that'll get me over to the tablets and other things. Final thoughts. This slide, much better too, but the point of this slide is that basically having your own original IP is really nice because you hit a point in time, if you're even moderately successful, where you go, it was worth doing. And from that point on, every cent, it's not like it stops making you money. And all of that is gravy. At Big Fish, one of the nice things, they port my game into 4 languages. Doesn't cost me a penny. Gravy coming in. They didn't have to do it. I'm happy. Man, I had other final thoughts, and I don't know what they are. Oh, but I am going to end with the thing I'm going to end with. So, and man, my logo is not even there. Okay. So here's Cassavaugh's law. The long tail of a digital sequel will always be longer and fatter than you think it is, even when you apply Cassavaugh's law. Because every step along the way, whenever I estimated, I was wrong. And it just, another chunk came in, another one. And I'll leave you with this since the slides are off the chart now. When my first game was dying at 48K, it was bringing in about 500 or 600 a month. The second game's been out there for 13 months, and both games combined for the last 4 or 5 months have still brought in over 4K each month. And the longer it stays out there, it triggers other metrics, I think. I think both Big Fish and iWin see the longevity and realize that not everybody's seen it. I do remember one of my last ones, the 100,000 eyeballs. 3 months, 6 months, a year later, they are not the same 100,000 eyeballs you saw originally. So what happens is half those people have seen Clutter, already made up their mind. People that like it, go buy it. People that don't buy it. The 50,000 that haven't seen, see Clutter II and go, some of those go, oh, maybe I'll check out Clutter I first. Either way, it took longer for the cross-pollination to happen so that my very first month of Clutter I and Clutter II were exactly equal with that big spike. But then Clutter II had 2 more big spikes because you can't play 2 games at once and they cross-pollinate and so forth. I apologize for the slides. Bummer, but that's okay. Any questions?
Joe, that was great. And don't worry about the slides. The slides were fine. So, you talk about the hidden object game. My cousin does Margrave Manor with Big Fish, and they have the combination of multiple games is absolutely what they see as well. I think it's a really important point, and I also think it's incredibly important that we focus on the moderate successes as well, because at the end of the day, we're always looking at the Supercells and the Kings, and we're forgetting that there are studios out there with 2, 3, 6 people generating $1,000 a day and earning reasonable amounts of money. So that's a good thing. So enough of me talking. So guys, what questions have you got for Joe?
Two questions. One is, you said you're going to migrate to Unity. What are you using now? And the second thing is, I don't know the game, so how do you monetize? Where is the money coming from?
Okay, so on Big Fish, it's you try it for an hour, and you download it for free, try it for an hour, and then at the end of the hour, they have to either stop playing or pay Big Fish $7, and I get a royalty of that. There is no in-game monetization. There is no free-to-play model with Big Fish. And again, I get 100,000 for starters, and then that's how it works. That's also true of iWin. Although iWin, I get all access. They do an all access thing where somebody pays a monthly fee, and the percentage of time they play my game, I get a percentage based on everybody else. You had a second question, or? Oh, sorry. I use C++ that sits on top of a framework that I helped write and develop while working for iWin, that they gave me permission when I left to continue building on that and so forth. And that sits on top of SDL, which is Simple Direct Layer or something like that. That's a open source, basically graphics library.
Can you talk about your relationship with iWin and Big Fish, getting in there, and just over the years you building sequels, and how your relationship changed?
What's funny, I'm involved pretty heavily with the IGDA in Atlanta, where I'm from, and I get this question all the time. And actually, I do part-time work, still 1 day a week, occasionally with a company that does a gaming company. And I am shocked that everybody thinks it's a hard thing to build this relationship with Big Fish or iWin or get your game on. It isn't. The nice thing about companies that really aren't pre-filters, they have a certain set of minimum requirements that basically, if you meet them, they're hungry for games and product. So as long as it's full screen, it's a full game. You can't do just like a little 3-ball match that has 5 levels that, is done in 10 minutes. But it has to be a full, complete game, at least 4 to 6 hours of gameplay. It has to run in Windows, full screen. It can't have offensive art. I couldn't do porn or whatever. But getting on the site was actually easy. And I meet with them when I, out here for GDC or this conference and so forth. And they're all very nice, and they want product. And especially once you prove product is even marginally good. Clutter 1 went out. Clutter 1, by the way, went out on Big Fish and climbed to 25, and it was not even the game of the day. It was sort of their second release. Clutter 2 went out and bumped Clutter 1 back into the top 100 with it, but only reached 33, because I'm not sure they have the metric to figure that out, which was fine with me. And one thing missing on my newer slide was this. A sale at the beginning is really just a sale you miss at the beginning because you didn't get the marketing. It just makes the long tail, your legs are going to be better, fatter. You're going to get it tomorrow, the next day. I used to worry that first slump, but I don't worry anymore. That's why I had Alfred E. Newman in there, so.
Any more questions?
I'm not really familiar with kind of the kinds of games that you're making. Like the games I make are more like adventure games and on Steam and stuff. And for me, like I reach out to magazines and websites to get publicity. Right. How does it work for a game like yours through Big Fish? Do they do all the marketing for you, or do you?
Yeah, in a sense, but I don't know how much they really put out. I'm sure there was a press release and stuff, but you either become the game of the day or the next game of the day, and you at least make it on the front page for one whole day. And that's why you get the 100,000, in 10. And then you go into this list this calendar list of new releases, and everybody that goes to their site is either looking at the new releases, the top 10, or one of their categories. And actually, by them putting me in Brain Teaser alone, I sat at the top of Brain Teaser for quite a while, which I think also helped. And by the way, I checked my numbers, even though this is all aggregate what I gave you. I made sure that if I, check Big Fish versus Ivorn versus a couple others, the same effect was everywhere. It wasn't because my second game went in Brain Teasers when my first didn't. That was not the cause of this bump. It helps, every little piece helps, but I saw that effect everywhere. So, and by the way, I Am Puzzles by Joe, and that was, my logo was on this slide too.
And one last question, anyone? Okay, so I'm going to sort of make a bit of a comment. So I think there's some really interesting sort of data out there, but the last time I can remember the right stat was a Flurry stat. We've said that 67% of revenue came from outside the top 100 games. And if that's true, then...
That's the long tail, sure.
That's the long tail.
Of course.
And also, this effect doesn't just apply in this context. This effect applies to services. That's one of the reasons why service-based products are so effective, is because not only are we taking this effect, but we're also building on it time and time again. And I think that's one of the reasons when you're looking at your game and you don't consider what you're doing to keep and sustain the audience for that,
right.
You're really missing out a massive trick.
Right, and one of the big things, I don't think I mentioned this, in the brick and mortar world, when you went out and, Halo 2 or Halo 3, you see that for the first time and somehow you missed Halo 1, you can't go find it. Nowadays, when the digital, if you like the sequel, you can definitely find the originals, and that's one of the big differences. So.
Yeah, it's interesting because I had a slightly different approach when I was running UK's game service back in like 2004 or 5. We actually had this process where we would launch a game, £6. Yes, so £6 is how much we could get at the time. 6 weeks later, we reduced it to £3. 6 weeks later, we reduced it to £1, and then we took it off. And what we saw is basically we earned about 9 times as much per user as any other operator in the UK. Per game on average, and that's a guess. It's based on some data, but that's the sort of ballpark area. But that doesn't contradict this. I was just managing the retail as a service.
Right.
And then when I tried to bring, you then could bring the most successful games back, like Tetris, for example, and still get another hit on the cherry. So, Joe, thank you so much. Great talk. Always love it when someone talks about the long tail.